Hi everyone, my name is Vivian and I'm a foreign student at North University. My major is international business, major in finance with minor in math and psychology. So for the past 6 months, I was in Luxembourg at Amazon headquarters work as a financial analyst in their network planning Europe team. And so here are some of the pictures I have during the time there. Um, as the middle bottom one is like me with the entire team of network planning Amazon, and on the top right is me with my intern friends and stuff. They're all over Europe, and so yeah, it was a great experience. So let me know if you have any questions regarding Amazon and finance in general. And this is my second call.
All right, Mary's next.
Um, Hello everybody. My name is Yuri and I did my group. I'm a second year student in the graduate program for international affairs. I did my co-op in Greece and I worked for the Greek ombudsman. Yeah, it was really nice. I worked as the assistant to the senior investigator on human rights issues at the Greek ombudsman. So right there, the lower picture right there is a picture of myself and my boss. Super amazing. Then just general pictures of trips and pictures of some of the friends I made in Greece. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And obviously Mary spent a lot of time on the beach. All right, next, oh, sorry.
We've had it back.
You're Hannah.
Hello, my name is Hannah. I am a junior. This is my first time ever co-oping, but I did do a double co-op. So I finished 2 co-ops at once. I co-opted at Universal Music Group and also Jade, which is a podcast company, so music and podcast at the same time. This summer, I actually had the opportunity to work for BBC for the Tokyo Olympics as well. So I got to have 3 different experiences this past 6 months, which has been really, really nice. My major. My major is communication studies and media screen studies, and I'm also minoring in psychology and marketing. So if you have any questions about any of my majors and opportunities I've had, definitely, yeah. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Rania. I'm a 4th year industrial engineering major. I did my co-op in Morocco, and from January till June, I did a lot of process capability. If you're in industrial engineering, kind of know what it is. It's basically a bunch of statistics to make sure that all of the yields, the machines that we're using in the sugar factory is correct. And that we're responding to the clients correctly. And then, there's a few pictures of Morocco, cultural stuff and everything, and the food is great. So if you want to go to Morocco, it's amazing. If you have any questions about living in Morocco or industrial engineering in general, just ask me.
Hello, my name is Christina, and I'm a 4th year architecture student. So I did my global co-op in Madrid, Spain. And here are some pictures just generally, since I'm an architecture student, obviously there's a lot of buildings, places I visited and traveled around in Spain, like San Sebastian, Mallorca. And also in the center image, you can see my office, and that's some projects I worked on. It was a great experience, and I would recommend it to everyone. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you. So I, again, have a prepared set of questions, but if anything comes up or somebody shares some information you want to know more, by all means, raise your hand. But first, a lot of the students have questions about the process of finding these co-ops. So can you just briefly share, did you find these co-ops through InWorks? Did you self-develop them? And then if you did, just brief information about what that process looked like. So who wants to start?
Perfect. So I found this co-op. This co-op was self-developed. For Spain specifically, and in architecture, it's a very small school. It was really hard to find one through Northeastern. They did have some options, but due to COVID
and the situation, it was easier for me to go on my own way. And I'm from Barcelona, so it was easier in a way to do it there, due to other connections that I had, and previous experience that I had there. So yeah, it was a very long process, because as I said, to COVID, one of my initial co-ops got canceled, so therefore it was a struggle and I didn't get it, until February. But waiting and being patient is always good, so that helped me a lot.
Yeah, my talk was also self-developed. I thought it was going to be easier to live in Morocco due to the COVID situation again, just because of travel restrictions and everything. Also, I got a dog, so I thought it would be better to be home for a few months. There was nothing on AgriWorks for Morocco, so I looked up a bunch of big industries in Morocco, which are sugar, automobile, and just big factories in general, and I looked at their website, I looked at their LinkedIn, I just sent a bunch of emails to a lot of people, and then some of them replied, and they were excited, they always like to have interns, and American universities are very valued over there, so when they see someone coming from the US, they're like, oh hey, come work with us. So yeah, just if you want to do a self-search co-op, just send a million emails to a lot of people, and you're gonna find something eventually.
So for me, it's also self-developed, but for me, it's a little bit different because I didn't apply for this call per se, as the HR checking for this position. What happened is, since I'm in international business, I have to like spend a year abroad. And so last year when COVID just hit, I was doing my first job in Boston, and I was planning to go to Singapore for my entire year. However, because of COVID, canceled. So I was pretty desperate. I was using like LinkedIn to apply for a lot of jobs. It's probably like the LinkedIn, the algorithm, like if you're actively seeking jobs, like it will notify the HR and then they'll find to you. So as for Amazon, they reached out to me. They said, "Oh, there's an opportunity in Europe. Do you want to try it?" I thought it was a scam, but I just like give it a try and I get an offer and just go there. So it's a little bit different from the previous students, but if you're interested, you like for LinkedIn, like algorithm, something like
So mine, I found mine on NUWorks. It was the first one that sort of called out to me, and I knew that I really wanted to do it. So I saw it on NUWorks, and I applied for about 7 and interviewed for a couple of others. And yeah, I got the one I really wanted to get, and so it was nice.
For me as well, I'm the same as the first two students, so I self-developed in my own country, which is Tokyo, Japan. I actually did not find it through LinkedIn or any other job website. I actually went to the individual company website. I knew that I wanted to work for the music industry or some type of entertainment industry. So I was actually on YouTube, and then I saw an advertisement for Universal Music, and I was like, why not check it? So then I checked it, and they had one opening. So I applied for that, and then I got it. So thankfully, I was able to have that opportunity. But I think if you really have an industry that you're interested in, just really look at the company websites as well, because sometimes some companies do not list it on those specific LinkedIn or like job or anything that's in your country. So I think just being really specific, checking any works first, because I only had one opportunity, which was already taken. So just be really flexible and just see what you can do.
And one thing, it is important to share that everyone's experience is a little bit different. And many colleges offer a self-development workshop. So if you're thinking about self-developing as an option, you can attend one of these sessions and learn a little bit more. Before I ask the next question, does anyone have any questions for the panelists based on what you've heard so far?
How did you go about deciding to do 2 co-ops at the same time? Like, is that something that's commonly accepted, or people do hear a lot? I've never heard of that before.
Apparently it's not very common. It's not 2 full-time because that's, quite overloading your schedule. It was 2 part-time co-ops. So I got to split my week into 2. Apparently another student did it at the same time as me with the same advisor, and he did it by splitting each day into 2, but then I just split my week. So I think it really depends on how much you want to work, I guess, and if you really find two companies that you just really want to work at, for me, I wanted to dip my toe into different industries, so that's how I did it. But I think it depends on your advisor, it depends on your own schedule, and just, I guess, for COVID reasons, it kind of worked out perfectly.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so students have to work at least 32 hours. So some students could work a 20-hour co-op at one location and then make that up. So maybe 20 hours for, any kind of combination, make sure you get to that 32 hours.
For the LinkedIn applications, verify if the companies will apply for the LinkedIn, were you like actively searching 6 month internships that you paid, or how were you like going about that search, or just like internships? Yes, so as for LinkedIn Builder, they will not specify like, oh, it's 6 months only, or like when it's gonna start. It's pretty vague. So for my strategy is, if there are any things I'm interested in, I just post it, because I know for the most part, I wouldn't get accepted, for an interview. So I'm just like try as much as you can, because, in that case, the algorithm will detect you as a active job seeker, and then it will lift you to some HRs that, like, based on some of the keywords they respond to your LinkedIn.
So another question lots of students have is kind of logistical. So once you interviewed, you got the co-op, how did you go about the visas or housing? Can you talk a little bit about that process, each one of your experiences?
So I'm not able to answer the visa issue, but I know, because architecture has a program where you go abroad, to Spain. So I know there is a way for Northeastern to help you manage all of that, and it's pretty feasible, I believe. And then with housing, since I was doing my co-op in Madrid, I wasn't at home, so I did have to go into a big search. You will find mostly in European countries that short-term rentals aren't that big of a thing. Like, it was very hard to find a short rental apartment that was also like located next to my job and in good conditions. So what I found that was most helpful, which I was surprised about, was Instagram. A lot of people usually tend to post like, oh, I'm renting a room in X place, whatever. So one day, randomly, my friend posted, since I have friends from Barcelona and Madrid, one friend posted that she was renting out a room in Madrid, and it worked out perfectly because she was leaving for semester abroad right on the time that I would need it to be in Madrid. So it was very lucky because it was like towards the end of my period in Barcelona and I needed to go. So yeah.
And we do have off-campus housing support students do that and keeping a database of where students stay when they're doing global opportunities. So that's a resource too for students to access.
For the visa, I also have a Moroccan passport, so I didn't need a visa, but I think if you have a US citizenship, you don't need a visa to go to Morocco. And as for the housing situation, at first I thought I could just commute every day, but that was overwhelming. So I lived in my family house, and then I had to commute for like two and a half hours every day, like driving every day, and that was bad. So then I looked for apartments, and for some reason, it's pretty different than Europe. Short-term rentals are a thing, and it's fairly easy to find an apartment over there. Especially in Casablanca, the city, like everything is very walkable, and yeah, everything is really close to the working areas, and there's not much paperwork, contrary to here, where it is horrible to find an apartment. But yeah, you just have to have proof of income, and then that's it. And the housing is really cheap, again, compared to in other countries.
So I can speak a little bit about the visa situation, because I personally have a Chinese passport, so it could be visa to go to everywhere and work in every country. So as for me, Amazon have 2 companies that they work with. One is especially for virtual locations, and so I work with that company to pay for my reimbursement. Also, Amazon reimbursed my housing for the entire time for 1,200 euro per month. And so I work with another company that specifically helping with immigration process, which is applying the work visa and then getting the residential permit in Luxembourg. So Amazon just outsources to company. And as for when I find a housing, even though Amazon reimburse me, but I have to find housing myself. So I tried it two different ways. I tried to find like housing off Facebook group, but I got scammed. Like they did like paying monies and stuff. But just be careful, very careful when you're on like this kind of social media platform. And another thing is, then I work with the local real estate agent. So then I found a housing before I got there because it was during COVID. There's no chance for me to check out the permit before I go there. So make sure that the source you find is reliable. But for the visa situation, it usually takes 2-3 months to get it like every process finished. So for me, I was planning to start my co-op January, but because of the delay of the process of visa, I started not until March and just recently ended like 2 weeks ago. So mindful about that can take some time. So yeah.
So I can actually speak to the visa situation. So I'm Nigerian, I'm an international student in the US, and I was going to Greece for my fall. So it was a bit difficult navigating the whole dynamics of the whole situation. So there was some difficulty getting a Greek visa, but then we reached out to the school, and I think that was when I met Aspa. And the school has some connections, I think, with the consulate, the Greek consulate here in Boston. So they were able to step in and help to make the process a bit faster because the resumption date was earlier and the whole visa situation was a bit tough to navigate. So I ended up getting there a bit later than was expected. But still, I think the fact that school has such connections with the consulate made things a little bit easier and we could get our visas faster than if we were doing it all in one. So it would be good to work with all the resources available if you're facing the difficulties in getting your visa and ask the appropriate questions. Make sure that you're not alone in sort of trying to get your visas and navigate the logistics of travel. Of course, COVID made it a bit difficult because wait times increased and all of that. But it was good that school stepped in when they did to help in getting the visa a bit faster. Also, when it comes to accommodation, I think what I liked the most was renting in Greece is a lot cheaper than renting in Boston, at least in my own experience. So that was nice. It was nice to get a break from the outrageous rent in Boston. So I use sites like Facebook Marketplace and some apps. And yeah, I was fortunate enough that the first apartment that we checked was really good. There was a lot of space and it was cheap. I think we were paying, I was paying about 275 euros a month, and that's maybe like $350 or something, and it was a great apartment. So I definitely would recommend it.
Awesome. I actually cannot speak on either of the topics because I'm a Japanese citizen and I lived in my parents' house. Because my co-op, one of them was 5 minutes away from my home, the other one was a 20-minute bus ride. If you do come to Japan though, it's really easy to find housing because there's a lot of websites. For the visa situation, I know when I was co-oping, they weren't accepting any work visas just because COVID got really bad in Japan at one point, and it was actually worse in America, so they just didn't want to have any contamination and have a new variant. I would say though that Japanese transportation system is really, really good and well connected. So no matter where you are, you can get to your location on time. Which is one thing that I noticed that Boston doesn't really do because sometimes there's like fires on the train, but that doesn't happen in Japan. So hopefully you'll always get there in time no matter where you're living.
I think one thing that's good to take from all this is everyone's experience is very different, from finding housing to working with their employer to getting the visa. So every experience is quite different depending on where you go. And I think just be thoughtful about that. It's going to be unique for you. Do you want any additional questions? Okay, any question?
Oh, sorry, based on that, Lisa, I just wanted to say, and we talked about it in the previous session, also remember that Northeast institution with many departments and many services, okay? So you're not alone. There is the Global Experience Office that gives visa guidance, the International Safety Office that gives safety guidance. So you're not alone in this, right? So there are many different resources. It's more important to remember.
So I think it's nice to kind of hear a little bit about your experience with the employer and what that was like working at a global location. If you worked in the US, compare it from your experience working in the US compared to when you worked abroad. Want to start?
Oh, perfect. So Universal Music is a global company, so I had a lot of opportunities to attend global meetings with different branches in different countries. That was really cool. Opposing to that, Jade was kind of a startup company, so I was really working with a team of 5. So it was a completely different experience, corporate versus startup. So I think it was a really rare experience to have that both at one time. So it was kind of hard to mold my brain into switching so often between the two. I would say that, I don't think I mentioned, but I was in marketing and social media co-op for Universal Music, and I was a podcast director for Jade. So I did more creation of podcasts and marketing the actual podcast itself. On my slide, actually, we actually made it to the top 10 of Apple Podcasts in Japan, and we made it to their homepage. So it's like right next to a little iPhone, which is really cool. With Universal Music, a lot of campaigns that I worked on are happening right now. So I worked with like Disney to have their Disney Princess celebration go up. I worked with Justin Bieber's team. It was really, really cool experience. So different in itself, but I think whatever your passion lies, I think if you're either into creation or production, all of my employers really took that into account to see what is it that they can support to help my learning as well. So it's me giving to them all of my resources, my help and assistance, but they also teach me and mentor me throughout the process. So I think that might be true to everybody as well, but I think overall global co-ops are amazing. I had to speak a lot of Japanese throughout my co-ops, so I think if you do have like a language barrier there, I think the website says that you have to have some sort of Japanese level, but just check with that and your employers, they're always flexible. Some people really want English speakers only so that they can be the liaison between America and Japan as well. So definitely check their corporate website and talk to the HR. Oh yeah, right there. I actually spoke in that one as well, the blue one. Yeah. Very fun.
So far I've worked back home in Nigeria, I've worked in America and now Greece. So I think the most interesting thing for me is how the culture of the country influences the work culture. I can speak more on what it was like working on Nigerian soil compared to what it was like working in Greece. And so my job was basically in the human rights department. And my supervisor and I worked on all things migration for the Greek society. So basically what the ombudsman does is that it's sort of like a public complaints commission, at least that's my understanding of it, where if you have issues with a state-owned organization as maybe a citizen or just a member of society, you go to the ombudsman and you sort of lay your complaints. So while I was working at the Greek ombudsman, I worked with different migration-centered issues from asylum seekers to citizenship applications to visa applications. So I think that was really interesting because initially when I started the co-op, I used to be really emotional. So I think one of the most memorable instances I had to deal with was, just not to give too much details, but then people would have really emotional pleas as to why they needed either citizenship or they needed a visa to come into Greece. And I would jump at it and say, oh no, this person has this super good story, let's just help this person. But soon enough, I got to understand that there's a process for things and there are laws set in place for things. So it's not always emotional. And when it comes to the work culture, I would say that my experience of the Greek society is that they're so chill. There is, for the lack of a better word, they're really so chill. So there is an actual work-life balance. There is an understanding that sometimes you might have personal things that you need to deal with, and so you shouldn't place like the work above your personal life. So just understanding it and the way my supervisor related to me and the whole office related to me. So where I come from, there is sort of like an official approach to things. even the way you dress, the way you show up to work, the way you speak to your colleagues, the way you speak to your supervisors, your bosses, there is an official approach to things. But working with the Greeks, I understood that it's really sort of, I'll use the same word again, it's really so chill. So I had an amazing relationship with my supervisor, and we could swap stories back and forth. So now there is an understanding of how much culture affects the things we do. So some things that I thought you were, oh, this is just how everybody does everything. No, it's how I do things and where we do things, where I come from. So I think it was an experience that I would cherish forever.
Yes, so this is my second co-op, so I do have experience working in US and in Europe. So just saying from the company culture, I was working at John Hancock in Boston, which is a very old insurance company as a financial analyst. And also I was a financial analyst at Amazon. So the corporate culture is very different. So for John Hancock, it's very hierarchy in place. So like you have to have a very, how to say, like a good manner, like a certain way to work with your manager and then report to your manager. But as for in Amazon, it's a very flat culture. Even though you're speaking with the director, your manager is like a few levels upper than you, but they're always very nice to share resources. And if you're working on any projects, they're very happy to give you the background information. So as for my responsibility at Amazon Europe, I've done a lot of like launching new fulfillment center in Germany and France, some business cases within fulfillment center, some delivery system and stuff to cut the costs during the operation, and also some finance team like daily reports and stuff. So I would say it's a very rewarding experience compared with my first one, because for the first one it's more that I focus on my own daily task, and after that I clock out. But for Amazon, I have more in a hand like responsibility with like launching source center and everything. So it's definitely very great. So as for the culture wise, in Europe, like everyone was European, kind of lax. It's kind of like that in terms of Amazon giving us a lot of days off. Like after 6 months, I have 15 days off that's paid. So they really try to balance work life. But here, I don't remember I have any days off in the entire co-op. And so, but as for the efficiency and like if European works slow or not, but it's both American companies, so like they work pretty fast and like very efficiently. Just the culture background itself. So
Yeah, I worked, so I worked in Morocco in the sugar factory, and I also worked, I did an internship in Florida at Radar Water Skis, who is a manufacturer of water skis and wakeboards. And I did that during the summer. So I feel like I thought before going to, like it was the first time I worked in Morocco in my home country, I thought it would be complicated just because it is the industry and it is a male-dominated field. I thought I wasn't going to be that respected, or that they would think I'm smart or I can do the job correctly. But actually, that was not the case at all. Everybody was super helpful. And yeah, my employer was also super helpful. At the beginning, they were teaching me everything I needed to do. Like actually, the stuff I learned during my co-op, the stuff I had to do during my co-op, is what I'm learning right now in classes. So maybe I should take my classes before doing the co-op break, it went well. So the first few weeks, they taught me everything I needed to know, and same thing for what Mary said, there is a work-life balance. So compared to when I worked in the US, where you have to fit the job, here the job fits you. So you just have to get the stuff done, like get the reports at the end of the week or like every week or so. Whereas when I worked in the US, I had to report to my supervisor every day or every day or so, and I had a bunch of tasks to do, like very precise tasks. Whereas in Morocco, you know what you have to do, and then you're way more independent in a way. So you do the job the way that you can do it. So for example, for me, I had to do reports on the machines and data collection for the machines. I could do it. I was the one who had to go and ask if I could tour the factory, I had to knock on the doors of my supervisors. Like, don't expect them to reply to your emails, because it's not a very technology, they don't really do emails. You have to knock on the doors of people. You have to talk to them face to face. But yeah, other than that, it was a great experience. Also for the language barrier, they were pretty flexible with me, even though like I speak Arabic, I speak French, and that's the languages that they speak over there. Mostly French, and they understand the work. Like they were like, you could do your reports in English if you want. For French, we have somebody that can read that. We have like everybody speaks English anyways. So yeah, in big companies, don't be afraid of the language barrier. Just because everybody is like somebody's going to speak English, and everybody has notions of English. But just to be safe, you could take cheap class in French. Yeah, it's not an obligation.
So this was also my first co-op, but I have done an internship in New York in a smaller studio. Something that was at first very different was obviously here in the US, you use inches and feet, and in Spain you use a metric system. So that already was a big step for me and a huge jump to work in meters, especially since it's all very visual. At first it was a bit challenging, and also even though I'm from Spain, I don't usually talk about architecture or learn about architecture in Spanish. So all the key terms and more sophisticated words, at first I looked like I hadn't even studied architecture. So I think just being patient, and even though learning the language and being involved in a company was very helpful, especially maybe because sometime I'll go back to Spain and work there. Then something that was also very different is from my experience in New York, I had a very set schedule, so I would come in at 9:30 and leave at 6, and everyone at 6 would close up everything and just go back home. And you would also have like a 30-minute lunch break where people might eat in front of their computers or like take a small break. Whereas in Spain, they have a very strict schedule, but at the same time very flexible. So we would come in at 9:30, and then from 2 to 4, we would have a break for obviously siesta, and then lunch. So that allowed me to do many things during the day. And then we would leave at 7:30. So you can see how the culture plays a big role in that, because it's a more slow life. But at the same time, it ended up being the same hours. And as it is a slow life, they're also more flexible, but at the same time more demanding. So one time I ended up staying till midnight working, because obviously architecture is a field that never stops. It's a creative process. So seeing the difference of the work ethic, well, not work ethic, but the work rhythm in the US and Spain was very interesting as well. And as everyone has said, culture had a huge play in my experience there. I got in there the first day, everyone was very welcoming. It was a mix between young and older adults, but everyone, despite their position, were super helpful, always being worried or asking how I was doing or if I needed any help. So it was very nice. But you could also see, I had done a small internship in Barcelona first, and Barcelona compared to Madrid, even though it's in the same country, has a very different culture. Madrid is much more traditional when it comes to the work place, so you could still feel a sense of hierarchy. I talked once to the boss of the company, so that already to me was very shocking compared as in New York, where like my boss would always be like super welcoming, and especially in studios, it's always a very creative process. So that for me was also very shocking, but a great learning experience to see different ways in which people work, especially in one field, how it can vary so much.
Now, what you'll see is many of the jobs posted on IndieWorks, there isn't, many of them don't have a language requirement, so if you speak English, that's fine, but we always say it's important to be interested in learning the language. So kind of study up on it before you go, and at least come travel with at least some knowledge of the language ahead of time. So we are in our last little bit of time before the end of the panel. So I'm going to try to ask two questions. So we have one online question where someone watching online wanted to know, how do you meet people? You know, you're going either to a new location, you're working, how do you make friends in that type of context? But also, can you tie in a non-work related experience? Because going abroad doing co-op is about working and learning and developing career skills, but also engaging in new culture and learning something new that you haven't before. So How did you make friends while you were there in a non-work related experience? Want to share?
Okay, so I'll start. So even though it was my home country, I went to Madrid, not knowing many people. And something that was at first very helpful for me was living in an apartment with other people. They were all very welcoming, and getting to know others through them was very nice. But at the same time, I feel like in any abroad experience you have, especially if it's in a big city or diverse city such as Madrid, or I feel like any of the cities we've been talking about, people are always very eager to meet people. There's a lot of international students or students all over the place. So just walking around, and even if you're at a coffee shop, you'll end up meeting someone, or even through a colleague, you'll end up meeting so many people that are just happy to share time. And that was for me very interesting. Also as well, thanks to Northeastern, many people, many of my friends who study here ended up going back home in the summer, and some are from Spain and Madrid. So also getting to know their friends and having just a very different type of group that I would have had if I was at home was very fun. And then, non-related co-op experience I had, even though it was my home country, I've been living in the US for the past 6 years. So going back home was a very different time for me. And even though I'm from there, it was great to get to know my own country. Traveling was an amazing thing that I was able to do that I wouldn't have done otherwise. And especially due to COVID restrictions in the summer, I always tend to want to go to other places, but being able to discover my country, doing road trips, and as you can see in the images, just like enjoying the food and all the architecture that Spain has to offer was a great experience for me, and as well as a learning, because obviously in trips there are different like difficulties and good things, so all over it was a great growth.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty similar experience. Even though it was my home country, every time there was vacation time, I would always go abroad or go to Europe or something else. So now, because of COVID restrictions and because I had a job, I got to stay there during weekends, vacation, and I also did a bunch of road trips with my friends. We went to the north, the south, and we discovered so many different things that we didn't know about our home country. It's beautiful. There is different types of food everywhere also, I'm gonna say. And yeah, the architecture is beautiful. The Medinas are beautiful. Medinas are the old old cities of Morocco. They're beautiful. The beaches are amazing. So there is definitely a lot of things to do outside of your work life. And for making friends, it was Morocco again. But I was in Casablanca, which is not where I used to live, and all my friends there studied abroad, so I knew nobody over there. But yeah, I had another coworker that was also an intern, and this person was from there, so they just took me to a bunch of great events, parties, and everybody again is eager to meet new people, and they're going to invite you to dinners, lunch, and you're going to make a lot of friends really, really easily. Just go up and talk to people, and people are going to go up and talk to you. So just be open to making new connections, and yeah.
Will it be open? So for Luxembourg, I don't speak any of their language because the official language is French, German, and Luxembourgish. So for the first 2, 3 months, it's very difficult for me, and because it was during the severe time of COVID in Europe, and there's no vaccine, so I barely make friends, but I only make the friends from the gym or like the receptionist that I talk to every day. So after that, since the COVID is getting better, there are a lot of interns at Amazon from all over Europe. So we usually have the WhatsApp groups. So we will have people arranging a lot of events like a brunch and go to drink at the park and have pizza sometimes, lunch break. So I just like go to a lot of those and make a lot of Amazon friends. And since they're from over Europe, I also travel with them. Like my friend from Barcelona and also from Madrid, like I spent there for like half months and working remotely. And also like go to France, Paris, like Brussels. Just other than work, I visited a lot of countries and cities, and that is a very unique experience that I have. So yeah, definitely be open, and just there's a lot of way, like as long as you're open, like well by car, if you carpool to another city, I make friends with people that go in the same way too. So definitely
if you're open, there will be friends. When it comes to making friends, I think people typically suggest apps and all of that. That's nice, but apps don't work for me because my personality tends to shine through in one-on-one conversations. So I think the first friend I made in Greece, and we made some more after, but the first friend that I made in Greece is one of the most memorable stories that I like to share from my time in Greece. I went on a morning hike and I had this habit of walking up to strangers and just saying, hello, can you take a picture for me or something? Most times you find that people are always very receptive because Greece is such a touristy country that people always go there and they want to take pictures. So it's a good icebreaker to walk up to someone and say, oh, do you want a picture? Can you take a picture for me? And so this is how I met a girl from Spain, and her name is Esther. So after we took pictures for each other, we had asked, oh, do you mind sharing Instagram account? So just try to take it further, just ask questions. And so we have shared Instagram accounts, and the common thread is that we're young people and we like to travel, we like to experience new things. So from following each other on Instagram, we spoke about wanting to go out and explore new places. And because she's so extroverted, she already had a lot of friends, and we were three that came from Northeastern to Greece. And so we sort of go out together and made a group of friends while we were in Greece, and so we would travel from one part of the country to another. And I remember like an inside joke used to be like we're like a mini United Nations, because in the core of the group we were a Nigerian, there's an American, there's a Greek, and there's a French girl as well as a Spanish girl. So it was a little bit of everybody from everywhere. So that was really nice, and I think one memorable trip we had was when we all took time off work for a week and we traveled from one island to another island, and so that's where most of these pictures are from. And we traveled from one island to another island, and we just went along the way, meeting people, asking people questions, just sort of sharing stories and setting up subsequent meetings. Also, I think one thing that was really memorable for me was the food. So prior to me going to Greece, my girl good food was super spicy, so with habanero peppers everywhere. But going to Greece, I was introduced to another sort of taste. And so because their food is so rich and there's just so much behind it, and yeah, I think I liked that. And the making friends part was really easy. Just open up, meet people. People like to talk about themselves, ask them questions. You can never have too many friends. Just find a common thread that connects you guys. Chances are, if you're already abroad and you meet someone abroad, it's what you like to travel and you like to experience new things. So that's a common thread that you can start from.
For me, I think my experience is a little bit different because I was in my home country, which is my hometown, and Japan was on lockdown, so nobody really came with. In JU, I had no other interns, so I was alone. And then for Universal Music, I only had one other intern who kind of like a different vibe from me. So we were the bestest of friends, like we were kind of acquaintances who worked really well together. I would say how I make friends is that I'm in the Japanese Student Association. So back when I went to Japan, I reached out to the club and I said, hey, is anybody else in Japan? So I made some new friends through the club, so different alumni, for example, who introduced me to their friends. So I think because Northeastern has such different cultural clubs, if perhaps, I don't know, you're going to Spain, there's Lasso. So for example, maybe someone from there knows somebody and it all connects. Yeah, I think it's just use the connections that you have. Everybody always has friends from somewhere and you're always connected. I think international, being an international student myself, there's also an international student community in Boston. So you can reach out to other universities as well to find friends and connections through there. Different things that I did over the weekends and such. I actually didn't have much of a break because I was double co-oping at the same time and right after I started the Olympics. But I would say that I did explore different aspects of Tokyo that I've never had, even though I lived there for all of my life. So there's always something new to do, different adventures, different buildings to climb. It's really, really fun. Nightlife is also pretty interesting, not like partying because everything was on lockdown. But I think it's really, really pretty at night. All the city lights are up. There's different like gaming centers that I heard people go to in Japan. Harajuku is where I work, so there's lots of places to eat. Love the food there, so I always try to eat with different country food every weekend. So it's kind of like I'm traveling abroad, even though I'm still in Japan and in my home country.
Well, I want to be cognizant of time. Thank you guys so much for providing your insights, your full experience. So this is School Co-op Day, so we have events throughout the day. We have a mixer coming up where you'll be able to speak and mingle with students that went abroad. And we also have some events talking about college-specific or specific areas and kind of what co-ops look like that we currently have relationships with. So if you're interested, by all means, stick around with the calendar, whenever you can attend, we encourage you to do so. But thank you all for sharing your experiences. Very unique, very kind of insightful. So thank you again for your time.
Should we open it up if you have any questions as our panelists here? It can be about the country or the city or the company, so any questions. Or you can come back with a school, then you can talk to them.
That's always a plus, right?
Yes. No, please.
What would each of you say would be the biggest piece of advice for someone who's trying to find a goal?
Sorry, I turned the mic off. I would say stay open-minded. For me, and I think on the very edge, both of our co-ops were decided very late. Mine was in January, and I think yours was in February. So I think keep open-minded about what industry you work in, because you never know what type of opportunities that specific company has. Also, like dates, I think it's really stressful with the visas and such as well. Because when I came to America, it was really stressful. But I think just always keep open-minded and stay open to different options. Sometimes, like, I applied to 5 co-ops, I think, and I only heard back from 2 because the other 3 were just really not in my area of expertise. But I think just applying to whatever you're interested in to see if they get a little hooked with your resume or your interview, I think always just stay open-minded and stay true to yourself and always try to portray your personality more than anything.
I think I would say network. So network, basically sell yourself, meet people, tell people, oh, this is what I do. And also while you're networking, try as much as possible to be a well-rounded individual in the sense that do your work professionally and make personal decisions as well. Because chances are that this is an amazing opportunity and you probably never built anything like it. Because you get to work and then you just sort of get to chill and live a different life from what you're used to. So make the best out of the opportunity, network professionally, and also make the lifelong personal connections.
Yeah, I think Hannah really great on being like open because I swear to God, after my first co-op, I was like, I'm not going to be a financial analyst anymore, and then I couldn't again. And also the countries you're opening to, because you're not necessarily going to land in the countries that you want to go and the position you want to be and the company you want to go. So it really depends on a lot of like factors. And also, I would say be brave because I don't speak any of the languages that the country I go to. So I don't know what's up there. There's definitely a lot of challenges during the time, so let's be brave and be open. We're gonna get through it.
I'd say get out of your comfort zone. When looking for co-ops, or like be actively searching for co-ops, and as I said before, emailing, do your research. Just like don't be just passively looking for the co-op, and then when you run the co-op, when you go there, again, just don't be passively doing your job and then not doing nothing else. Be actively looking for connections, friends. Like just put yourself out there all the time.
I would say just to trust the process and make yourself believe in you and also understand that everyone has a different experience and different steps in their co-op search. So as I explained earlier, my co-op was canceled in late January. I was supposed to start in February. So just, I thought that was like the most amazing experience I would ever have. But just being patient and knowing that, I know sounds like very cliche and everything, but everything happens for a reason. And my co-op that I ended up doing was a great experience for me, and I even think it was better than the one, as a personal growth time, I think it was even better from the one that I had. So just be very patient and keep on looking, and just know that everything will end up being good, and also like taking everything as a positive thing. So learning from the good things and bad things as well. So just as a whole.